Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever actually stopped to think about how a newly discovered molecule makes it all the way from a sterile research lab to becoming a life-saving therapy sitting right there in your medicine cabinet? Well, I can tell you it certainly doesn't happen by accident. Today in this explainer, we're breaking down the unseen engine that powers that entire journey. Strategic program management in pharmaceuticals and life sciences. Think of program management as the essential conductor of an incredibly complex medical orchestra. Without this conductor, you just have a bunch of really talented players making noise, right? But with them, you get this perfectly synchronized symphony that brings harmony to scientific innovation, massive business operations, and incredibly strict patient safety rules. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to follow the chronological journey of a drug, step by step. First, we'll look at the need for structured oversight. Second, accelerating discovery and clinical trials. Third, navigating global regulation and the big product launch. And finally, number 4, the critical ongoing commitment to ensuring long-term patient safety. All right, let's jump right into part 1, the need for structured oversight, or what we're calling the catalyst. To really wrap our heads around the sheer immense complexity of the life sciences sector, we have to define program management. It is the structured oversight needed to align scientific innovation, operational efficiency, and compliance with global standards. You know, program management in this industry, it's not just some fancy job title, and it's definitely not a passive back-office administrative role. It's the absolutely crucial active bridge that connects raw, unpredictable scientific breakthroughs with rigid operational and legal frameworks. Because honestly, without this oversight, even the most miraculous scientific discovery would literally just stay stuck in a test tube forever. There is this massive underlying tension right at the heart of the pharmaceutical industry. On one hand, you've got research scientists. Their entire job is to push boundaries, ask what if, and try entirely novel approaches to cure complex diseases. But then on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have rigid global standards that demand absolute predictability, zero errors, and undeniably proven safety. The real magic of program management is perfectly balancing these two opposing forces, making sure they actually work together in tandem rather than just constantly blocking each other. And this continuous life cycle basically flows in 5 core steps. It begins in research and development, moves straight into rigorous clinical trials, tackles global regulatory compliance, orchestrates the actual product launches, and finally establishes patient safety programs. It's this incredibly dynamic chain where every single phase relies 100% on the precise execution of the step right before it. Moving right along to part 2, accelerating discovery and trials. Welcome to the testing ground. During that early research and development phase, structured oversight is highly active. Program managers are in there overseeing discovery pipelines, ensuring lab coordination, and really driving cross-functional collaboration. And why does this matter so much? Because this level of coordination directly accelerates innovation. By connecting different discovery teams and seamlessly coordinating labs early on in the process, program managers completely eliminate silos. They make sure scientists are actually sharing data efficiently, cutting out wasted time, and fast-tracking potential cures to the next stage. It's a total game changer. But then the big question is, how do we safely test these amazing lab breakthroughs on a global scale? Well, clinical trials demand incredibly complex, multi-phase coordination across various global geographies. Just imagine trying to run a highly controlled scientific experiment, but your participants, your data collectors, and your doctors are spread out across hospitals in multiple different countries and continents. The sheer scale required to orchestrate these multi-phase trials and making sure the data is perfectly synchronized no matter the geography is a massive operational feat. And let's slow down for a second, because the stakes during this phase, they are human lives. During clinical trials, the absolute imperatives are adherence to trial protocols and maintaining strict ethical standards. There is literally zero room for corner cutting here. A program manager has to make sure that every single testing site and every single medical professional perfectly follows unwavering ethical guidelines. It's the intense gravity of those rigorous protocols that protects the human volunteers and guarantees that the science itself is sound. Okay, part 3, global regulation and launch. We have finally reached the market threshold. Once those trials wrap up, the whole narrative shifts away from the lab. Because you can't just start selling a drug just because a clinical trial was successful, right? You have to prove it to the world's strictest judges. This is the regulatory compliance hurdle. Program managers are actively managing FDA requirements in the US, EMA requirements over in Europe, and adhering to dozens of other global standards. They have to meticulously satisfy these incredibly detailed, highly complex legal and scientific frameworks. Why? just to ensure that the eventual product launch is thoroughly vetted, completely safe, and officially approved. But here is a fascinating contrast: having an approved product versus achieving market readiness. Look, getting a product approved by the FDA or EMA is a monumental scientific and regulatory achievement. Huge. But actually achieving market readiness, that is a completely separate, massive operational hurdle. Just because a drug is legally approved to be sold doesn't mean it magically teleports into hospitals and pharmacies worldwide. Getting it into the hands of doctors and patients requires a total top-to-bottom shift in strategy. Orchestrating that product launch means overseeing marketing readiness, establishing secure distribution networks, and coordinating highly complex supply chains. It's not just about throwing a fancy launch party and cutting a ribbon. The program manager is up there waving the baton, making sure the active ingredients arrive at the manufacturing plant, the specialized packaging is ready to go, the temperature-controlled supply chains, which are so tricky, are functioning perfectly, and all the educational materials actually make it to healthcare providers. Every single piece of this has to hit a synchronized crescendo for a new therapy to safely reach the public. And that brings us to part 4, ensuring long-term patient safety. This is the lifelong commitment. The pharmaceutical industry's responsibility to the patient absolutely does not end the second the product is sold. Actually, that's really just a new beginning. Patient safety programs are the continuous proof of responsible delivery. Let's be crystal clear here. The program manager's job does not end at launch, not even close. Once a drug is out there in the real world, being used by millions of people instead of just a small, controlled clinical trial group, program management permanently shifts into a continuous, long-term commitment to safeguarding human health. So to break that down, this long-term oversight involves a few critical ongoing elements. First up is coordinating pharmacovigilance, which is basically the science of continuously collecting, assessing, and evaluating data on a drug's effects once it's actually on the market. Next is actively monitoring for any adverse events, because ultimately the goal here is ensuring long-term safety. Program managers make sure the systems are in place to constantly gather real-world data, guaranteeing that a medication remains just as safe 5-10 years down the line as it was the very day it got approved. The absolute core mission of strategic program management in life sciences really comes down to 3 simple words: deliver breakthroughs responsibly. It's not just about scientific speed, and it's sure not just about operational efficiency. It's about taking those disciplines and combining them with an unwavering, non-negotiable commitment to ethics and safety to make sure we do it right. So as science continues to rapidly advance, bringing us these highly complex, totally personalized therapies and cures, it leaves us with a huge question. How will structured oversight shape the next generation of medical breakthroughs? The therapies of tomorrow are going to be infinitely more complex than the ones we have today, which means the role of that essential conductor, it's only going to become more vital. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.